Hey guys, alrighty, so we have a brand new crucible here, but before we can use this, we need to season it. And seasoning a crucible just makes sure that your metal is not going to stick to the sides. And to do this, we're going to be using borax. And you can use absolutely any pure form of borax. So I've got my crucible held in some tongs, and I've just got that set up so that I can move it around a little bit. It's just resting on a couple of fire bricks. And to do this, I'm going to be using a silversmith torch with a number 3 tip. So to start with, what we have to do is heat up the crucible. If we don't heat up the crucible first and we just put our powdered borax in there, well, it is going to blow all over the place. And on that note, even with the best intentions, it does get a little bit blowy. So make sure you're working in a well-ventilated area, and you must be wearing a mask for this. But yeah, all I'm going to do is just heat that crucible for about 2.5 to 3 minutes. You might be able to see it start to glow slightly. I'll be honest, my photography lights are so bright, I can't see shit right now. So I'm just going to heat it for a couple of minutes, but I'll leave this playing in real time. So anyway, why do we need to season a crucible? Basically, if we were just to melt metal in here and try and pour that, chances are that metal is going to stick to the sides of the crucible. And when we pour, we need to pour fast. We don't want anything slowing us down. So what we're going to be doing is coating the inside of our crucible with a glass-like substance. And when that stuff gets hot, it gets really slippy. And so our metal can be poured quickly and easily. But anyway, now that is nice and toasty, what we can do is just put a little bit of borax in there. Now, I probably should have put a bit less than this in. And to be fair, we are going to add more later anyway, but it does work better if you just add a little bit at a time. I did want to get a salt shaker and put some borax in there and sprinkle it on nicely, but I told myself, Luz, just get this damn thing done. But all I'm going to do now is keep heating that crucible. And that flux, it's going to start going white and crusty, and eventually it's going to go nice and clear. But the aim of the game here is to get the entire crucible coated. And so while I'm heating the crucible, I am rotating it around, just letting gravity do its thing and pull that molten flux all the way around the crucible. And once that's started to melt and flow, you can see just how much more flux you're going to need. So we can add a bit more and just carry on doing the same thing. But yeah, we really do want to make sure that we don't have any areas inside that crucible that aren't coated with flux. And sorry you can't see much here because of the flame, but basically that molten flux is kind of just dripping and moving all the way around the inside. I will be honest, my flux is probably about 15 years old. I really think I need to replace it right now. It should probably look a little bit glassier than this, but it's going to get there in the end, you'll see. But I will say, the most important part that we really want to make sure is fluxed is the tip, okay? Because that's where we're going to be pouring metal from. If the entire inside of your crucible is fluxed beautifully, but the tip is unfluxed, well, that's going to really screw up your pour. All right, I just took a second to reposition my crucible here, and obviously I did not use my fingers for that. But I just need to make sure that I'm getting this inside edge right here absolutely coated in flux. And the easiest way to do that without getting my hands in the camera was just to reposition it. And it is actually quite surprising how much flux you need to fill a crucible. This is just a standard size one, and I've probably used like a flat dessert spoon full of flux to get this coated. But don't worry, because if you do end up with a little too much flux in there, and yes, you can have too much flux, you can just tip the crucible and let that drip out of the lip. Onto a heat-proof surface, of course. Please do not let this drip on your bench or your fingers. If you drip this stuff on your fingers, you are really going to know about it. You're going to end up with blisters upon blisters. So please remember, this really isn't dangerous, but you do have to work mindfully. And as always, you have to use your common sense with this. Yeah, that is starting to look pretty good. Like I said, my flux is super old, so yours probably won't look quite this crusty, but we've got the entire inside of the crucible covered now, and so we can call this a job well done. No, actually we can't. I cannot tolerate that crusty finish, and you know me, I am totally OCD. So I want to show you again using a 60mm crucible. And these bad boys are super cool because they do heat up a hell of a lot faster. simply because there's less material to bring up to temperature. So I went out to the supermarket and got myself some borax from the laundry department, and hopefully this one is going to work a lot better. But again, we've just got to spend a little time preheating this first of all, just until we get it to glow slightly. What we don't want to do is put our borax in here and have it blow all over the place, because the crucible isn't hot enough to make it stick. So we'll just heat this for a couple of minutes until it starts to glow. But that is looking pretty close right now. So we can add our first, probably about ½ teaspoon or so of borax. Like I said, I like to add mine just a little at a time, just so it doesn't get too gummy. But you can see this new stuff is bubbling up nicely already, and it's sticking to the crucible, which means I got the crucible pretty much to the right temperature. So we can just add a little bit more and then start heating again. And you can see that this stuff is turning liquid a lot faster than my old borax. So I'm just going to rotate that around the crucible again. Like I said, we want to make sure that all of our crucible is covered here, especially that lip. Now, if we look at this, it's looking pretty good. There's just a couple of little spots that needs a bit more flux. So we're just going to add a little bit more. I'm trying to keep this on camera as much as I can. This is a bit messy, but it does the job. I really can't believe I was struggling with that crappy old borax for so long. This is looking so much shinier already. And I've got that covered about as much as I can without taking this thing out of the tongs. But what we can do to help our coating and get that all over is to add a little bit of silver in there and just melt that. And then once this is melted, what we're going to do is just swill it around the crucible a bit. And the weight of the silver is just going to help move the flux around and make sure that it is coating the whole of the crucible. But yeah, that is looking pretty nice now. So much better. My heart is now happy. Alrighty guys, that really is me over and out on seasoning crucibles for now. I'll catch you later.